Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us again. It's been a little bit of a break. Had some scheduling plans that fell through, so when you only do it once a month, feels pretty long between them. But got an exciting one today. Gonna have Deadskull on, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen in the industry, if you follow me or other people kind of in the same circles. And yeah, it's gonna be cool. And last stream from I think it was back in April with Marius is gonna be up on YouTube. If you didn't get to check that out, along with all the other past streams, so you can just look those up, and they're all up there to watch if they get taken off of Twitch VOD. So you can always check the YouTube channel for those. Without further ado, let's switch over, and we can. Oh, here we go. Cool. Oh, there I am as well. Hide self. There we go. Perfect. What's up? How you doing?
Yo, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm so jealous. You're I think one of the first people where you have like such a way cooler backdrop because it's like actually like art directed with all your little toys and posters and stuff.
Yeah, we'll say it's definitely on purpose art direction and not just let's put everything like the corner of that camera, then it just gets boring. So yeah, you have to have books in your background to make sure that you look like smart and stuff as
Yeah.
well.
Well, welcome. It was
Yeah, thanks,
we
man.
had some planning to get this on, and it just like seemed to take forever. But
Mm.
glad that we got you on here. I think what we could start with first is just a little introduction, like who you are, what you do, in case anyone doesn't know, and then we can kind of flow from there. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, man, sure. Well, my name's Deadskull. My real name's Declan, and I'm a CGI artist, multimedia artist in the themed entertainment industry. So working on theme parks, attractions, family entertainment centers, anything from like uh, the your high end roller coaster e-ticket attractions down to your simple like walk through
Mm-hmm.
attractions or mini golf, or it's the whole spectrum really. And I also do 3D projection mapping on the side with like my own live stuff, and make fake neon signs as well as the real fake neon signs. Which that's probably what people might have seen on Twitter and Instagram and all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. You also
Yeah,
did
man.
some kind of like DJ, like kind of projection sort of stuff as well, or
Mm.
yeah. And was
Yeah,
that
so
like
that's
before the theme parks, or was that kind of after or on the side?
that was like how it all kind of started outside of university.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started figuring out what 3D projection mapping was and wanting to make my own show with the idea of that one person, like the DJ, could control the lights, control the animations, control the
Mm-hmm.
music, control absolutely everything. And that was just kind of a side project that got out of control really quickly. So going from like the space of learning what 3D projection mapping was to playing in the middle of Moscow in Russia, the space of like a year and a half, it was quite crazy.
Yeah, I think that that's like we've talked a little bit about kind of like your path there, but I think that other people would be really interested because it when you say kind of like theme parks, it seems like super specialized, and like how in the world would like you get into that? But your path there kind of like it made sense when you think about it in kind of the terms of like being interested in like shows and like kind of live things, and theme parks seem to kind of sit in like a really cool in between where it's like it's a planned thing that happens kind of every time, but like up to there's lots of it borrows from sort of live shows. So yeah, you didn't what did you like go to university for exactly? Was it just like 3D or CG?
So originally, when I went to college, we'll just start just before university, I went to be like a film director.
Mm.
So didn't really know. I think the most animation, not even 3D, was Flash, like CS3 Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple 2D animation, keyframing, and that type of thing. But yeah, originally I went to be um, a film director. I was very much into my cinematography to be a director of photography as well. So I went to university to do media production, which kind of covered everything. So it was from your basics of film, um, slight animation, radio, television,
Mm.
broadcast, the kind of whole spectrum. So it wasn't until the second year of university that I really even touched 3D or even opened a 3D program.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it all kind of started snowballing from there, is just picking up Cinema 4D is what I use, and learning that, going from your basic spheres and your grayscale gorilla tutorials and
Yeah.
like video copilot and all that stuff. Yeah, but a completely different direction to what I wanted to go to university for.
Mm-hmm. And
Mm.
then kind of like on the side there, you were kind of going also to like shows and sneaking in, and kind of like, was that before university even? You kind of had like that itch to like film things and like edit stuff, and like shoot, so that you already kind of knew before college that that was kind of like something that you were interested in, and then it kind of was an easy conversion into 3D when you were like,
Yeah,
you
that
already
was.
know cameras, you already know like
Mhm.
composition, lighting, and all that stuff. It's just, costs zero money to do it now in 3D. I
Yeah.
mean, after you get the software, which is kind of, I feel like that was kind of a big thing for me too, where it's like, I had like a camera in high school and stuff, and like you said, kind of video copilot stuff, like shooting plates that I like wanted to add VFX onto, and it was always like kind of limited because I mean, like my town, like where I grew up, was like pretty much like farms and like nothing like that cinematic or like epic for the things I was like trying to like do VFX for. Once you realize
Mhm.
that like in 3D you could pretty easily build any set you want, it's like, oh, okay, like this takes no time. Like if I shoot it wrong, I just like re-render. It's like totally fine that way. Um, yeah, and so was that anything that like you were kind of like, feels like 3D opened like a ton of that kind of creative possibility when you were trying to like just shoot stuff before and like do certain cinematic things? Same thing with like cameras. If you want to shoot better stuff, you need like just a ton more equipment, kind of, in some cases.
Mhm.
Not every case, because equipment doesn't always matter, but like 3D, you can make any kind of like anamorphic camera you want. You can do any of that stuff. It just opens that kind of door for people that were originally shooting and now are like in 3D.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that the transition from knowing kind of film and learning, because I originally learned on DV tape, so,
Mm.
and the really like the older cameras. So learning the whole kind of process of like lens studies and the kind of theory behind film, I think helps a lot when you know your different types of shots, um, your storyboarding process, your
Mm-hmm.
lenses and your editing, and absolutely every kind of step up in filmmaking. The transition into 3D then is fine, but you've got more assets and tools to use,
Yeah.
because it's not like, oh, I wish I could buy like this anamorphic camera lens and all that stuff. As even though it won't be completely the same, you can get a
Mm-hmm.
very um, close replica shot to what you want, especially with everything that we have now at our disposal. You can just go, oh, I want this 85mm prime 1.2 lens, and you just type it in, and then that's
Yeah.
pretty much the closest thing you can get. Yeah.
So after kind of going for that like general of a degree, or in college, was that like, did you start doing like internships outside of that to kind of get like in the industry or like get a little bit more experience, or kind of how did you transition out from like taking those classes into like real work and stuff?
hmm So outside of university, once I did my live show, which is called Invasion Live, for anyone that's has seen it or would like to see it. And that's a kind of 3D projection mapping show that we were previously kind of just brushing
Mm-hmm.
over. And from that, straight out of university, that's when it kind of hit the internet. And I think it's still one of the it might be, don't quote me on this, but if you search for like 3D projection mapping on Vimeo, it's always one of the top videos that comes up of like the initial test of my shows.
Hmm.
So from that, I progressed into doing live shows and um, kind of DJing and touring, and not really doing the filmmaking side anymore, or even the 3D side. It was kind of just making touring like shows, whether it be the big show or the small show. And on the side, I would also do kind of 3D music videos and animations for the record labels that I was working with at the time. So anything from Inspected Records, which is in the UK, Dim Mak, which is Steve Aoki's label,
Mhm.
Ausler, which is Skrillex's label. Just doing bits and pieces for these different labels, or even just marketing stuff.
Mhm.
That was kind of the drip feed of work, and that kind of opened up the process. And I did work for like some studios in London for like a
Mhm.
6-month period, but it was very much different to the you do what you want kind of
Right.
thing, and
Yeah.
here's the more corporate brief things that are not really that fun.
Yeah. And so just from the invasion stuff, was that all kind of like just because of people being like like impressed with that, they kind of like reached out and like flooded you with all this kind of work and like the tour with that, or um did you kind of have to more kind of seek out like and like network with people to kind of get that work flowing in?
Mm. It was quite easy in the start, in the sense of, because I was around all the musicians and
Mm-hmm.
DJs with filming. Um, then that kind of just, they just go, oh, can you make this? Can you make
Yeah.
that? So it was quite. I didn't really have to sort after it, and then
Mm-hmm.
also when I was into like social media and Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, which I'm not so much anymore. But that would be like, you get your direct message and they just
Right.
come straight through and be like, oh, can you work on this music video? And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't, it didn't go anywhere. But they were always there, the messages. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I did have to do quite a lot of to get my foot in the door previously to like getting work and filmmaking, and prior to the Invasion Live stuff taken out, I would do a lot of cold emails.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just finding a directory of all the things that you like, and then just emailing people is probably your best way to get in, because 9 times out of 10, unless it really goes viral, you're not going to see much on the internet anymore with how much things are posted or that type of stuff. It
Right.
has to be kind of right in front of their sight lines, and then you can kind of work your way in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then even if those emails don't get any kind of traction, still talking to people on Twitter. I mean, it's how I met you.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I met like most of the artists I hang out with over calls and have a drink with. But yeah, it's a lot of make sure you've got the portfolio to back it up, but cold emails and just getting in front of people is where a lot of people don't think to do, which is the most simplest thing to do as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's kind of um cold emails is like a big thing that like sounds kind of like antiquated, or you'd think there would be like a better way, but I remember like in college like wanting to try to like just get my reel that like at the time was like the best thing I had to really show for anything. It was all made up of like personal projects, just like sending that maybe a resume PDF, and then just like, hey, like I'm like new into the industry and would like love to work with you guys at any point, or just even get like kind of in their like contact sheet. And I think like
Hmm.
maybe like 4 5 people actually like get back to you, and half of those are like, no, like okay, we're good, but we'll like keep like in contact if we need you later, which is like
Hmm.
totally makes sense. You're like a newbie essentially, and like they have a good network of freelancers. But I did notice that like kind of if you just do that, and then like years later I'll get like emails from some of those people being like, hey, just like wanted to check up and like maybe update some of your info, see like what you've been doing. It's like great, because it's just the fastest way, even more than just like applying for jobs. I feel like just
Hmm.
cold email, like people just want contacts. I'm constantly getting flooded with like emails of like, hey, do you like have anyone to recommend? Do you have like or just like people looking to just bring on new just like freelancers too. So cold emailing
Hmm.
is definitely like I would say like a great thing for freelance people or people coming like right out of college.
Oh yeah,
Definitely. Also
100%.
followed
I
up with, I
think
guess, doing personal projects and like work. Like you have to have stuff to
mm,
show. You can't
yeah.
just be like, I have like this
Oh
one
yeah.
project from school. Like you still kind of like what should be like pursuing personal stuff, because
Hmm.
that's like the easiest way to kind of put people at ease, because they can really see like, oh, you did that all on your own. You can
Hmm.
actually, we can see how you would fit into our like pipeline.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that, just touching on what you've just said, then that's one of the most important things I think that people don't realize when they're kind of just coming out of college or university. It's the they'll go, oh, but they want this industry experience to get these
Mm-hmm.
kind of roles and jobs and stuff. But just from my personal experience, all no one's really spoke about the work that I've done out, like my like day job.
Mm.
It's always my personal stuff. It'll either be the neons that I make. It'll be the live show. It'll be all this stuff. So, but it kind of shows your determination outside of being told what to do and have a brief. It's
Right.
like your passion as well, which will go quite a long way when you're kind of pushing yourself without the need for money.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get paid for these things, and it shows like your passion as well, I think, for where you want to be and what you want to do. I mean, I've seen so many people that don't really work in my line of industry or anything like that, but they'll post like ride concepts. They'll do animations on like Planet Coaster or Roller Coaster Tycoon, and plan out all these kind of theme parks, which is not too far away from how we do things anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very transferable skill with that type of thing as well. So the more you put into yourself, the further you're going to go, I think, off the bat with a cold email. And cold emails as well, if you don't get a reply, you're at least in their inbox. Someone would have seen that email. And if you get a reply, like you just said, say maybe not at this time, or
Right.
thanks for your details, but like that, they've took the time to reply, so they must have seen something. It's not just a unless it's like, you can tell it's a robot
Mm-hmm.
replying. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's always, even if it's the smallest thing, whether your email was like, I've seen all sorts, like even if it was in bright bold red text, easier to read but not like crazy, it's enough for them to go, that's slightly different, and then they'll keep tabs on you.
Yeah, and I think the other part kind of that goes hand in hand with personal projects in the way that you can kind of bolster up work if you are someone who doesn't have a lot of client experience, or even I found the case that like just putting kind of the work that you would like to be doing, if you just
Mm.
do a personal project, you can kind of really hone in like what your reel looks like, so that when someone who maybe not is like isn't an art director or maybe isn't even in the creative team, but they can kind of just be like, that looks similar to like the stuff we do, I'm sure they'd be a great fit, I'll pass it along. That was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a aha moment for me, where I was like, I've done some client stuff, but like I don't really want to put that in the reel because it's like not exactly stuff I would like to be like hit up to do again. So it's just like, I guess I have to go kind of make a project I would like to be like hit up to do. So it's like, okay, well, that's going to have to be like a personal thing, and I just do it on the side. But you get full control, and that way you can kind of really start to curate what people start to kind of like ask you to do. So kind of in the world of like motion design, that's so broad, and like there you can go kind of more of like a corporate look up all the way to like cinematic, and they all fall under like motion design. So if
Mm-hmm.
you really don't prefer to do one side or the other, you can kind of start to gear all your work that you present to one side of it, and hopefully that will kind of help sort out people to really know like what you would prefer to be doing or what your like skill set exactly is. And I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
probably for you too, because like the neon things are kind of things that you've done on like personal projects, but it does look like once people can see that like, oh, he's like, he can do this, they will start to kind of bring you in maybe to like do sort of things like that, and you can start to incorporate it, or they at least have a reference of like, oh, this is like something that they're like excited to do, or
Mm-hmm.
how cool it can look. um yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's especially with the neon, I've got
Mm-hmm.
brought onto projects mainly for to work on photorealism, and it's got nothing to do with neon. uh, it's um, it's that weird one. As long as you're showing kind of a magnitude of on a range of skill set, then that's perfect. Especially as well, like you just mentioned, make the stuff that you want to make. Don't make stuff that you think you'll get hired on the basis of, because
Mm-hmm.
then if you do get hired, you're going to be doing all the stuff that you don't really want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's like the neon stuff's like a perfect example of doing just what I enjoyed to to a point that got like either a neon related job. So
Mm-hmm.
probably the biggest neon job that I had was doing the uh like a neon billboard for Bullet Whiskey out in the LA market, which I didn't design or anything like that, but I got brought on to do all the
Mm-hmm.
advertising campaign. So remake it in neon, do all the animations, do all the social media posts, all that stuff. But that was all
Right.
just from like, I enjoy making neon and I love retro neon signs. So just transferring that into to CG is just a hobby really.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone will just pay you to do it eventually.
So how so you would probably be mostly self-taught, probably with like just the time frame of like when you were actually at university to like study these things. Things obviously like new stuff comes out once you leave universities, things like Octane or like different rendering things or all that
Mhm.
kind of field. So probably just like mostly internet taught, right? Just
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah.
I learned the basics of like 3D modeling and Maya at university, but that it was not in depth as what you could
Mm-hmm.
probably teach yourself. So yeah, mainly all it's kind yeah, it is self-taught, but it's just me looking for resources really. So I
Right.
wouldn't say it's like I studied the
Mm-hmm.
manuals of all these programs,
Right.
but no, I looked up like tutorials or would follow other artists and figure it out that way.
There's one thing that like a lot of people always have questions on is like, what do you find is like the best way to like learn, like when you do have to kind of like, because there's so much information out there and there's definitely great resources and there's like not some great resources, but there's just like it almost seems like you're overwhelmed at this point. When I remember first time, like when I was getting into this, like even in high school, like trying to find a good tutorial was like almost impossible, or it was all sort of covering the same topic. But I feel like now you have like almost so much information that like you're not exactly sure where to even start. Like when someone's like, oh, I taught myself like Cinema 4D, a lot of people are like, well, that just seems extremely daunting. When I open it, I have no idea where to start. What do you find is like the most helpful or like easiest way for you when you did have to kind of teach yourself some things?
Mm. I think it's probably the easiest and most streamlined way is just think of what you want to do. Say if let's go real to basics. I want to move this cube around a circle in a spline. Um, just take the words of what you're saying as well. So like
Mm-hmm.
the spline, it's like move spline, Google that, or um just re I think just deconstructing anything that you really want to do, and then going on to the more complex side of things. Say if I wanted to do 3D projection mapping, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find not so much material on it. If not, and if there is, it'll be for like a building or something like that. So always start small, never go like ambitious out the gate, even if your end product is the ambitious. You know, let's say we want to project on the Empire State Building or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Figure out how am I going to project onto a cardboard box first. That's what I learned to do. And then you go, I'll make the box bigger, use more software, and yeah, and don't get bogged down on software. That's another thing of like I think every CG artist has probably been asked that question millions of times. What render do you use? What software do you use? And all that stuff. And we know it's not going to make everything look pretty, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just stick to one software that you know when you're learning or want to learn something, or um, but yeah, just do it in the most simplest form, or Google or YouTube like how to do the most basic thing, and then you'll realize that tutorials that you watch of say a UI for Iron Man or something like that is that you can take those principles and use it for something else. You don't have to do if that's the end product of the tutorial that you're watching, it's just take little parts of it and just use it for your own thing. I think that you can learn a lot by direct copying of like, here's how to make A, A or B,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do A and B exactly, but you've got to realize that there's millions of people out there that have done A and B also, and they've got that probably in their portfolio. But yeah, just deconstruct things and go, well, I've took A and B, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll try and make this thing C that I want to make.
Right.
Don't know if that makes sense or if that's just a ramble.
No, I think that makes sense, and I feel like that's kind of how I learned a lot. Is that like it was just way too daunting to like even sit through like introduction to X, Y, and Z software. I was just like, I didn't remember any of the like navigational stuff. I didn't remember where the buttons were. It just like you ingest it and you just like totally forget. So it's so much easier to kind of like, and you get like discouraged because like you've sat through now like an hour long tutorial and you've made nothing. You've just been like looking at
Hmm.
someone click buttons and like tell you where things were and you have no context to it. But like I feel like whenever anyone's like, how do I get in Cinema 4D, it's just like follow like 10 Grayscale Gorilla tutorials all the way through and like make the same exact product. And then
Hmm.
after that, like you will have some amount of like idea of like, oh yeah, in this tutorial there was that one thing. I'm sure that would work to do this in this thing. And you can kind of just like, yeah, deconstruct a lot of those and realize that
Hmm.
you're actually be taught like you were being taught some basics and you can start to like get them to work. And when that doesn't work, you can kind of have some of like language of the of the program to like effectively Google stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that that's kind of the best part. So it's definitely you can still just follow tutorials, but like as long as you're not kind of just like thinking of these things as like magic numbers that do stuff and like it's like a
Hmm.
recipe, you can definitely start to piece out parts of it. And it might just be, keep you encouraged because you're actually making stuff as you go along. And then you'll feel kind of like, okay, I'm getting a hang of this. And then you can kind of transfer it over into like your own project. And that's, I think, the key. Yeah, as soon as you can, try to make your own thing. But like if you
Hmm.
are trying to make your own thing and constantly just hitting a wall of like, no clue what to do here, probably just need to watch some more like tutorials and just like get more saturated and like just being inside the program. We got some chat here that said would love to see a December Bring Invasion live on tour again. Ooh. So people are wanting you to do that. What's up,
Slowly
Zach?
bring it back.
Zach's in the chat. Number one attendance always, Zach. But yeah, I think that that's like a good spot, and I feel like it was kind of uncommon for a bit there, probably when we were starting to be like self-taught by the internet, but I feel like it's just going to become more commonplace, and there's just so many great resources and actually like full-on classes that like take you from zero knowledge all the way through, and like you know I feel like our approaches are like kind of the like janky, just do it on your own without any like structure sort of thing, just fly
Hmm.
by the seat of your pants. But there are some really great like what could substitute as like college classes, like School of Motion has like really well thought out planned classes and stuff. So people should definitely check those out if they're trying to get into it. But there was I'm always curious because projection mapping, such a technical thing that has such a like
Hmm.
real world physical element to it as well. Did you have to kind of when you wanted to explore that like buy a projector and stuff just so you could test things out, or did you totally start in 3D and then hope that like when you finally got the chance to have like, real world projection it would just work? Or what was kind of the start of that kind of rabbit hole that you kind of went down?
Yeah, so I'll take you through the you've heard this story before, but
Yeah.
I'll do it for I'll do it for the stream. It's that so how the journey for 3D projection mapping started for me. It's I watched Skrillex's live show in I was about to say Brighton then, in Brixton in London, and it was a 3D projection mapping show. I think it was in 2012, and it was just nothing really was out there at the time, and you've seen this big white structure, and it was booted up with all these animations, and you could not tell whether it was actually moving or whether it was animation, because it was just so different to what you kind of seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that idea of, I know that this thing works, it's out there, it works somehow. So taking that, I kind of rented a, oh god, I think it's an old VGA projector, like a 480p.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably count the pixels on the wall, kind of terrible projector from my university, and I got uh they're kind of cereal boxes, cardboard boxes. So not the actual cereal box itself, but the shipping that they come in, like the square boxes. And I spray painted them white because I knew that the structure that I went to see for the Skrillex show was white. So I basically just plugged in the projector, put a white cardboard box in my kitchen at university at the time, and just projected my screen, just the canvas or composition of After Effects, and kind of just masked it out. Nothing to do with projection mapping. It didn't work that way, but just to get the basics of how this thing would work. So real world application from the start, really, because I didn't know 3D really at the time either way. Excuse me. So from the get go, it was all physical, and getting your hands on stuff and kind of learning hardware and software at the same time. I think kind of elevated elevated it really quickly. So I would get the masks out of After Effects, use the projector, mask out kind of like stroke animations, um, Beeple footage, which was the stock at the time. You go onto the Beeple's website and download them, um, and then from there you just take the same principal idea of, here's your foot by foot cardboard box, and then you get more cardboard boxes, and then you make your composition bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and then you say, I want this ball or like a mask from After Effects to go from that cube down to there, up again,
Mm-hmm.
and then go, all right, so that's an animation, and then you add on top of it. So then it kind of got to the point from going from the from the kitchen to my parents' living room at the time. And that's when I came across some software called Mad Mapper, is where you could actually render out your composition or your render, and then you would feed it into Mad Mapper, and that could obviously warp and change the perspective or keystone of the projector to fit any shape. So
Mm-hmm.
previously to that, I would sellotape or like duct tape the projector where I needed it, and then duct tape the boxes so it didn't move. Because if you move it, then you've got to try and realign it and all
Right.
that stuff, and it wasn't the case then. So going from that practical world thing, then incorporating 3D to the 3D projection mapping aspect of it. So you would kind of build the scene inside of 3D, and then replicate that physically in front of you, and try. I didn't really know this at the time of using the camera lens as where your best focal point will be, or
Mm.
lens or anything like that. So I just put like 35 mil standard cinema camera, just bang on like where in the middle of the rig, so it was like flush to it. um so then that worked, and then I figured out another program called Resolute Marina, which is just like Mad Mapper. You can use like masks and alignment tools and stretching and warping perspective.
Mm.
But also you could then plug in musical hardware like MIDI controlled. I think it had an APC 40 at the time. So you press that button, and then that animation works, and then that's the light bulb going. So
Right.
this is how like what VJing is, and then this is what projection mapping is,
Mm.
and then just going bigger and bigger, and then going from living room to I got brought in to do a digital media, like a digital arts festival at university, a frequency festival. So using cardboard boxes on a big stage, and I was like, please don't fall over, just duct tape them to the stage, it'll be fine. And then after that kind of went well and that stuff, and you go, well, just take this and make it 30 foot by 18 foot, and just get a big projector, a bigger lens. It'll all work out. I had little to no knowledge about any of this stuff. It was all just guesswork.
Right.
But I think that's what it needs. But you might get bogged down, or like the cognitive overload of information of going, oh, I don't think it'll work. Just think of all that stuff. Just go, no, it's just same thing, just bigger. But yeah, just all practical. Just to wrap back around to the point, it's with that type of stuff, you need to physically see it,
Right.
because you can. The only software thing that I did was for Russia, but that was already pre-calculated for us. They set up all the 18 projectors, you
Mm.
know, 300-foot building, and then they give you like a Cinema 4D or After Effects project, and
Mm.
then you just work on top of it. But all the hard work's been done for you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of practical work. But you could replicate my show, any show in the world, just like with like little models like here. You could just do it on your desk if you really wanted to. Small pocket projector, it doesn't have to be any good. It's as long as you are learning the kind of
Mm-hmm.
aspects of projection mapping, then it doesn't matter how big it is, and you can film it like on your phone or whatever, and it will look huge anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, hands-on learning, and reaching out to people as well, and like asking so many stupid questions at the time of like, how would I calculate lens distance, or
Mm.
how would I the projection mapping coverage like per pixel density for all that stuff, and you go, well, I don't know that, no one's taught me that. Just
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, if you ask an artist, they'll probably reply, as long as you've put it in like a nice, like thought out message, not what you use to do projection mapping. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't really help you out there.
Right. I think that, yeah, I've had a couple of those instances where, I mean, I know when people have reached out to me that like a lot of the times you like are excited because we do so many of these like we're like little engineers in like in 3D in an imaginary world, and you're kind of like excited when stuff works out as like a mad kind of like chemist just like mixing things. You're like, wow, that worked. And when someone's like, how did you set it up? You're like, oh, perfect, because I spent so long setting this up. I would love to explain to someone like what I did and like all the details. But when it just comes along as like, give me like your file or something, or like, can I just like see that real quick, or can you just like explain to me how to get it perfect? It's like, oh well, that's not fun, because you're not really interested in what I did. You're kind of interested just into like copy all the work I did and then like use it for yourself. So I think that you can, yeah, reaching out to anybody in the industry or anyone that you're like, I know a lot of times I'll even like DM people on Vimeo, because Vimeo has like so many R&D tests that are just like thrown up with like
Mhm.
no explanation of how they got there. And like if you just kind of DM them, they'll be like, oh yeah, like here's like a little bit of like a breakdown, or they'll kind of walk you through it, which is really nice. I find that a lot of like Houdini artists are like very very accepting just to like throw you a little setup or a little explainer of how they did something, because there's like 1,000 ways to do everything. um,
Oh yeah, there's never one way to do anything anyway. So
mm-hmm,
it's whatever the best way for whatever artist is. I mean, even on like those janky R&D videos, that's what got me. I wouldn't say it was not viral in the slightest, but a lot of traction online was with the cardboard boxes, and like you see my Xbox next to it on Vimeo, and that was like the small invasion rig, and a lot of people like were generally interested. Oh, how do you do these animations? What are you using and all that stuff? But that was more thought throughout the questions of how would someone go about this, and go like you've just said, I go,
mm-hmm.
finally I can actually just spill all of this all of these like tests that nobody's seen, or the R&D behind the scenes that no one gets to see, and just lay it out as like a almost like a stepping stone kind of way. But whenever I've gave advice as well, I'm like, just I don't mind you copying me like word for word or do exactly the same thing, but you're not going to learn yourself
Right.
if you try and do exactly what I've just done, because you want to
Mm-hmm.
try and be better, or at least try and make it even better, pretty much.
Cool. And then from that, I mean, that was like a lot of you teaching yourself, kind of all those things.
Mhm.
When you got more into like the theme park aspect of it, there was still some like projection mapping, and you like kind of showed me some like little tools that you had built for different places. Um, how with like teaching yourself and then getting into like the industry where maybe some people have like kind of a little bit more like a traditional expertise, was where there's still some kind of like filling the gaps in on what you had like missed out, or like, oh, here's like a actual way of like a standard way to do this versus like what I'd figured out had worked through my experimentation. Was there
Mhm.
any of that kind of thing that had to happen when you finally started working like with the theme park aspect and bringing over what you had learned?
Yeah, it's a lot less janky than I was doing it, put it that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so there's a lot more standardized ways of doing like 3D projection mapping for theme parks, and especially like dark rides is what I kind of specialize
Mm-hmm.
in. For anyone that doesn't really know the term dark ride, it's kind of your it is what it says. It's like a controlled environment, like in a show building, so you have control over all light. So essentially, if you turned everything off, it would be a dark ride. Um, so yeah, there's a lot more standardized ways of doing things. Most companies, or I'd say the majority of companies, have their own tool set that they've built themselves. So they've got like their own software and that type of thing. But there are systems out there like servers that kind of do it for your alignment. So
Mm-hmm.
there's I think it's Vioso. They've got like a 3D projection scanning tool, which kind of you hook up a camera, like I can't remember what kind of camera at the moment, but that will scan your surface area and kind of give like a lidar scan, and it will give you data backwards. There's Hippo servers which have got a tool called Shape, so you would uh, build your scene out in 3D, obviously using real world dimensions or
Mm-hmm.
CAD drawings and that type of thing. And you would use UV projection mapping, like camera mapping.
Mm.
So you would say, we think in the show building the projector will be here and here, and then you animate your uh, your animation, you animate your animation, you animate your scene, and then you kind of export the UV mapping into like a uh, a composition, or 16:9 or whatever the coverage is best for that projector. Normally 1:1 works quite well with projectors as well for UV mapping, and then you put it into something like Hippo, and Hippo can, as long as those kind of projectors are in the right area or been calculated properly, Hippo will then projection map your scene
Oh.
perfectly, because it'll work out the UV coordinates and your model. There's some tweaking on site, obviously, but that will figure it out pretty much 95% of the way.
Hmm. Is there a
Yeah.
reason that like oh, you said all these places have like kind of their own proprietary thing? Wouldn't it? Is it
Mhm.
just so they can kind of have full control on like making tweaks or like adjusting like the base code of it, or is it just like it's not that crazy and it's all kind of based on the exact uniqueness of each kind of ride or theme park themselves, that they wouldn't
Mm.
use like a big standard kind of across the board thing?
Magnitude of reasons, really.
Mm.
One of the most commons is they'll sell the software within the budget of the package,
Mm.
so they'll make their own custom software, and they will sell that to the park or the vendor, and that will then be incorporated with like a handbook how to use, but they never have to touch it. So,
Mm.
and also licensing rights, so they don't have to pay a license off
Right.
for the software. So let's say Mad Mapper, for instance, you wouldn't have to pay Mad Mapper for like so many years until the ride's lifespan, because
Mm.
you've got your own kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, to come down to licensing, come down to costs, rollout as well. Once you've got your own software, you can kind of roll it out to a magnitude of projects.
Mm.
Um, and then like you just said, you can tailor make it as well. So you can go, I want to do let's say a multi projector install for a big theme park, or like a viewing area, and that's got 30 projectors in, and that software could handle 30 different inputs and calculate all the meshes and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got some software which will be your simple kind of Arduino almost like setup, like sensor goes off, projector plays, music plays,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that simple, compared to your I don't know, your massive e-ticket roller coaster attractions that have got hundreds and hundreds of sensors and all that type of stuff.
We got a question in the chat for you from CG Rockstar. He says, "Are you working as a freelance artist, or are you your own company, or are you working for a company that kind of does this for, and kind of they take on projects and you're just assigned them that way?"
So I work for a company, and it's pretty much like that. You will be assigned a project based on your speciality. Like we have a
Mm.
matrix skill set of like every possible skill you can have, and then you would say if you're good at it or you're bad at it. Um, for theme parks, there's a lot of companies out there that do this type of thing. The best link that I can say if you're interested in that type of stuff is Blue Loop, the website. They've got a directory for every possible theme park outlet or design or vendor, so you can see the hundreds of companies that do it, and they kind of sort them by country as well, so you can see whether they're local or they're abroad or that type of thing. But there are also a lot of freelancers out there that do third party contracts with theme parks, as they would for like VFX houses or
Mm.
that type of thing. So don't be discouraged as well if you want to work in theme parks and you're not with a company, because a lot of people get their way in as freelancers anyway, and then they'll settle with the company and more into a full-time position. But for me, it was, I going back to the cold email stuff,
Mm-hmm.
cold emailed, found myself a company and started working through different companies, getting hired job titles and roles and that type of thing. But me personally, I'm on with a company, and then it's pretty much everyone does their own thing.
Right.
So it's not you have to work at a company or you have to be freelance. It's all quite open.
We have another one from Stu Bucky, and he wants to know what's the best projection mapping you've seen in a theme park. Is there one that like comes to mind as like, wow, that's like insane?
I'd have to say probably either Pirates of the Caribbean at Shanghai, Disney, which, as much as it's not really 3D projection mapping, it is very, very good,
Mm.
um, with the kind of grand scale of things. And then also, trying to think of like 3D projection mapping specifics. Rise of the Resistance at Disney, on both coasts is really good as well, because you don't know it's there. So
Hmm.
the you might have to help me out here. Oh, is it with the is it AT-ATs, the big dog looking things in
Yeah,
Star
yeah.
Wars? Yeah, those. So all the legs of those droids. Would you call them droids, or would you call them
I mean, they're technically a vehicle in
a
like the
vehicle?
biggest sense because you can
There you
like
go.
just transport people. Yeah.
Yeah. So the vehicle of those legs, they're all 3D projection mapped.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's like smaller installs that are really quite good. The Cobra's Curse at Busch Gardens, that's got a real small pre-show in, which is really cool. 3D projection mapping stuff. Also, shout out to Stu as well. Me and him are good buds.
Yeah, he says the only one he's seen is the Smiler, which I don't know if that makes sense to you. I'm totally illiterate
Yeah.
on all of these names. I'm like, those sound like the only one, I guess, the Rise of the Resistance. Haven't been there, but like I know of that one. Was your like
hmm
love for like theme parks and all of that, like I guess tying in like horror genre esque stuff, like before you kind of got in the industry, or is like being in the industry kind of like just made you have to kind of like be really invested in them because it's like, you know, to see what like else is happening in kind of the industry and all that stuff.
It all started from like being a kid,
Hmm.
really. Being a kid without the internet and playing PC games. So Roller Coaster Tycoon is you'll notice that so with a lot of people that work in this industry, that's where they kind of
Hmm.
started out. Is just love of theme parks, Roller Coaster Tycoon, all those kind of games, and I think we've spoke about it before. It's the you go to all these theme parks, but you don't register that people have actually designed them because
Hmm.
you think they've just popped out of the ground and they're so immersive.
Right.
You wouldn't think that that Wild West rock work was specifically made by a person that specializes in rock work from like the Wild West
Hmm.
era and that type of stuff. So, but as I've kind of got into the industry, it's you kind of have a focus on things. So with me with
Right.
dark rides is that you'll kind of gravitate towards one thing or the other. So for me, it's 3D projection mapping, dark rides, and Halloween based events as well, which I really enjoy. I'm absolutely terrified of them, but I love them.
That's my issue with horror is that like I love thriller suspense, like I can get with that. It's just like I'm just not a fan of just like gore or anything, and that just happens to be what a lot of that is like based in like classics or like some of them. So it's just like not for me. Like if I don't have to watch someone get like cut in half by a chainsaw, I'm not gonna watch someone get cut in half by a chainsaw, no matter like how I
Mhm.
guess interesting the rest of the film is. So yeah, a lot of that stuff I'm just like I'll pass, which kind of makes me sad because yeah, there's some classics or just other things where I'm like I should just once watch this thing that's like just such a part of like pop culture and like everything,
Mhm.
but just haven't brought myself to do it. Is there anything like a dream project that you would want to get like handed in like kind of theme park or I guess projection mapping projects across
Mhm.
anything, or is there one that you worked on where you're like, wow, this is like such a dream come true? Kind
Mhm.
of curious.
Um, I have worked on projects. Obviously due to NDA, can never really talk about.
Yeah.
But I have worked on projects that have been like you were kind of in the driver's seat of like the project itself. So that was a kind of you get to make all the art direction decisions,
Mm,
the overall creative decisions, and then dream projects would just be handling a dark ride from start to finish with a huge IP.
right.
Um, so you would meet with the film director, the producer, the distribution company, take all like the assets. So let's say I don't know, Stranger Things, for example, is a Stranger Things ride. This is
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist, but it's just been put on your table, and taking all the assets and elements of all the stuff that you enjoy, and you can develop a knowledge of the IP and really translate that into theme parks because a lot of the time you'll see these announcements with IPs or theme parks or whatever, and they go, "There's so and so the ride," and you see all the fan base going, "Oh, that part, how can that work as a ride? Or that'd be a terrible idea." But
Mm-hmm.
they're just thinking so literal, like looking at the film, then looking at the ride and going, "Well, how that doesn't make any sense." And then you've got
Right.
someone like me or uh, all of the good friends that I work with that will translate all those things into a plausible attraction,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a ride or a walkthrough or that type of thing. But that's where all the hard work gets translating from screen to like a physical world is it's like the dream kind of job role.
Yeah. We got another question about like dark rides, which I kind of we've kind of talked over, and I was surprised at the like level of like kind of architectural visualization sort of things that you have to do just to get some things like approved, because people want to like make sure that like it will look cool, and if you're already building it out, then you might as well kind of like sell them on some like style frames. But they're asking like, do you just design those, just like the visuals that will be of them, or in, like the lighting and the screens, or do you design like the whole layout sometimes of like exactly like where the track goes and like where screens will be placed?
Mm. So it can vary. I'm like a guy of many hats. So I've done all those jobs. So not me specifically have done the layout, but you would work with like a CAD engineer,
Right.
who will say, we call them black box spaces. So it'll be a box or a sound stage or something like that, or uh yeah, pretty much that. um, and you'll say, this is the area you've got. Here's all the structural columns, and you have to work your way around.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of work in VR as well to kind of see sight lines and that type of stuff. But anything from the original idea, pitch room presentation of going, here's the idea, into lighting design, into audio design, doing the visuals for the actual content, the delivery. So seeing that kind of final media, previs, storyboards. I like to kind of be in all of the production steps. So then if I'm in the writer's room at the start, and then taking it through to final delivery and being on site and seeing me pointing at stuff in a hard hat with a high vis jacket on, um, it's so the creative intent and the design structure throughout of it. So I like to be in everything, but I think if I had to say that what I do more of is probably the handling the media or the pre-visualization for the rides. That's why a lot of stuff I've been doing recently is kind of, this is what it should like, POVs in VR, uh, and yeah, just taking the initial idea into a plausible thing for the client to see, and then they go, and then you've got sign off or
Right.
final delivery stage.
And like kind of another question from the chat, and in the same kind of area, is that like how what is like kind of the timeline that happens, like, is it like they give you sign off, then sometimes you're probably waiting for like, if it's IP, like assets from them that are like specific or something, and then obviously in tandem is probably running like, does like engineer like physical production also probably start like similar, because you can run both of those kind of at the same time if you're making all the screen content and they're working on like there's the mechanics of like making a new ride. What kind of like timeline does that normally like provide you? Does it seem like pretty tight turnarounds, or is it like you kind of, because you're waiting for a physical thing that's going to have to go through, like safety,
Mhm.
actually being built, all that stuff, or does it kind of happen a lot faster than you would think?
I think it's probably longer than probably what people expect. So it always depends from job to job.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, based on a high level multi-million dollar e-ticket attraction, it can span from anything from, I've seen, 4 years to almost to like 10 years in
Oof.
development. Yeah, so especially with rides that have not got any basis to, world's firsts, for
Mm.
example, the development or the IP could also be in development. So um, sometimes attractions started to be designed before the movie's even finished, and
Wow.
they've got that kind of agreement. But yeah, I'd say it's several years, and the concept phases and detailed design phases, schematic design, that'll all kind of add up in time, and there might be delays in terms of client sign off,
Mm-hmm.
reviews, structural elements with the site that have changed as well. So they might not be able to put a certain footing or like show building in a certain section due to like agriculture or something like that.
Mm.
And then you've got, say, let's go for a roller coaster or a dark ride, then you'll have cycle hours. So that roller coaster can't really be ridden by a human until, like, let's say, I think the basis is 10,000 hours. So you have, like, say, a couple of months of testing, and you see this roller coaster going round and round and round. And then once someone can go on it, then they might be like, oh well, that's another several months, because they need to time everything, or there's only so much simulation you can go until you're on the ride yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can really vary. But quick turnarounds are sometimes plausible, but on these huge ETIC attractions, they're normally, when anybody asks me, it's like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I help design rides. I work in themed entertainment. Like, oh, anything that I would know? I'm like, maybe in like a couple of years,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. But yeah, it's a long process.
Yeah, that's crazy. A lot of people are just mentioning that seems like so much longer than you would think. Just like that kind of span from like yeah. It would also seem hard to like if you were just brought on for one ride, like it would be so sporadic because like you're saying like there could be delays where it's just like hey like they're testing like you just can't really work on anything if you're just working on that one, but working in a company they'll probably be like because it's so staggered like shuffling everything that there could probably be something to like hop onto after that. But yeah, that's um it's insanely longer than like what you can kind of come up to timelines wise in like the commercial world or like just like um that kind of side of things where it's like weeks or like
Mhm.
just like maybe a month or two and then you're on to the next thing. Do you like kind of the fact that like your brain gets to sort of sit in something for like a little bit and get really familiar with it versus like every 2 months having to like totally switch a new gear into like a new ride or something? Or does that still happen because you are at a company and like you'll be working on multiple things at the same time?
Yeah, it's always, you'll be very, very lucky to work multiple months on the same thing. Um, there is times where you get to do that, but you will normally be on about 3 or 4 projects at a time,
Hmm.
just because they'll all be in different cycles of life of the project. So one thing might be testing, so you're going to go and do the pitch meeting for the other thing, and while that's being having client sign off, then you'll move on to site planning for something else, and then you're doing art direction on this other thing. I have worked on projects where I got to do one thing for a whole year,
Hmm.
which is when you can kind of really. I'm one of the type of people that I set up all my research around me, whether it be books, website links, movies, TV shows, or whatever the IP might be or original idea, and I like to sit in it for a couple of weeks, and then you absorb it. But like if you get brought onto, hey, we need you to quickly write this pitch by the end of the week, and it's Wednesday, you have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of quick go, what's the idea? What's this?
Yep.
And then you might go. We have like lull periods as well when say things are testing or whether there's a delay in your skill set that needs to be used. So you'll have like maybe a month or 2 months of no work, and
Mm.
you're just kind of doing the minimum of stuff. But it does really vary. You can be very lucky and have a project for a long time, which I personally enjoy, or you can have the weekly change ups of this is going wrong. We need some help, or
Right.
this projector's not lining up. Can you come fix it?
Mm. Cool. Is there anything that personal projects wise that you're working on that you'd want to shout out before we kind of wrap it up? Or is that um, totally swamped? Just I know you had a NFT that
Hmm.
dropped last month or with the Sevens Foundation.
Hmm.
Last month, month
Yeah,
before. I
yeah.
don't know. Time is an illusion to me.
Yeah, time's the whole thing now. It's like still COVID time where you don't know what day it
Hmm.
is and everything blends into one. Yeah, that's still up. I kind of just did it on a whim of seeing what it was all about. Not really my focus really
Hmm.
anymore. But yeah, that's out there. I've got um, some new bits coming. I've been working on a neon for maybe best part of, let's say, over a year now, maybe a year. I think I've showed you for like
Yeah.
months and months ago. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'll work on it, but when you work on all these things, you want a bit of a break
Right.
afterwards. So yeah, there'll be a neon that might come out, might not sometime. um, I have a short film that I'm working on, and also may or may not be rebooting the live show soon. Well, I say soon, within the next year, I would have thought, once I've wrote a new show. But yeah, things are coming out slowly and surely, but they're long-winded now that I'm being bogged down with the theme park work. Now everything's opening back up. There's a lot more being put on my plate for theme parks.
Well, thank you so much for doing this call. I guess it's actually just like we've done these before, but it's the first documented and recorded one that
Mm,
is out for the rest of the world, which is always fun. See, it's also such a unique kind of use case of like 3D and all that, which I was sure people were going to be interested in, and people are saying it was fun. So that's awesome that people were jazzed about seeing this. This will be up on YouTube if anyone wants to go back through and remember any of those programs that we mentioned, or you mentioned, or any of that stuff. But yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again. Thanks everyone for stopping by. And then I'll see you next month for the next stream. See ya.
cheers.